January 21st, 2026. Welcome back to the Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. And joining me today in just a moment is Larry Ballard, Will Barney, and Bill Armour. Here's a time sensitive, important announcement I want to put here right now, and then we're going to bring Larry Ballard on fresh off the heels of this important announcement. Mark your calendars. Roll it.
Don't miss this month's live Patriot Q&A hour as John Michael Chambers hosts our Patriot Power guest, Will Barney. Get your questions answered. Mark your calendars. January 29, 2026, 8 p.m. Eastern Time sharp. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your password and you're in. Not a JMC Broadcasting Premium member yet? You could be. Simply click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your info, and that's it. John and Will, looking forward to answering your questions for the solid hour. See you there. Where we go one, we go all.
All right, Patriots, put on your seatbelts. And first, this important announcement. The information provided by me and my guests is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered as specific investment, tax, nor legal advice. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals. Having said that, let's bring on our first guest. Larry Ballard is the author of Liberty Crusade, Restoring the Republic. God enables those he calls. In 1968, author Larry Ballard had a near-death experience during which he was warned of a time when our freedom was in peril. That time is right now. In preparation for delivering his God-ordained message, he studied history and religion because they are key to understanding world events. He gained invaluable firsthand experience working in construction, nuclear energy, real estate, bioengineering, and the medical field. He traveled domestically and internationally, including Mexico, Canada, Europe, and China. These experiences gave him insights into the events of 9/11, our intentional losing trade policies, losing trade policies, our open border policies, the 2008 financial collapse, universal healthcare, and the hidden agenda behind the climate change narrative. Most importantly, he gained insights into the elite's plan to trigger a financial collapse that would thrust the world into financial chaos. But God showed him how America would be used to restore order out of chaos and lead the world into a period of peace, prosperity, and spiritual awakening, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. We win, the enemy loses, because God always wins, and we, of course, are on God's side. Having said that, one last comment. Larry was introduced to me by a good friend of ours, Juan O'Savin. Please welcome to first time to the Global Financial Reset, Larry Ballard.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We've got about 30 minutes, give or take a bit, before we bring our other guests on to join in a panel discussion with you and I, Larry. Why don't you open up with wherever you'd like to go? I have some specific areas, if you don't go there, that I'll raise as questions to you and take us there. Would you like to kick this off, or would you like me to steer it?
Let's just let you do it. I can punt. I can go anywhere you want to take me. So this is your show. You take the reins.
All right. Thank you, sir. Well, I certainly know how to do that. Let me ask you, Larry, did you have the opportunity to watch President Trump in Davos, and any quick comment about the abrupt flight issue and that we saw take place? Of course, the president ended up there. Any comments on the speech and the diversion of the flight?
Well, this would only be opinion, but they've tried to kill him supposedly 16 times. He's the greatest threat that the global financial elite have ever had. I don't put anything past them, and I think that their number one objective is to take him out. So do I think it was an accident? Probably not, but I think that God had ordained him. I'll just tell you a little bit of I work off of intuition, and I work off of what I call words from God. I'm not a prophet. I get meetings with him at about 5:15 in the morning. And basically, when Barack Obama first made his first speech, the first speech I ever saw, he was running for Congress. All of my friends said, that man will be president someday. He's so articulate. I said, no, God told me he was so evil, it wasn't even funny. And we would woe the day that we ever embraced him as president. When I saw Donald Trump step on the golden escalator, here's what I heard. Up until that instant, I thought of him as a billionaire who stuck his nose in where he shouldn't and a womanizer. And that precise second, God said to me, this is my chosen David. So with regards to the question you just asked me, God has chosen him. He anointed him. He enabled him. He will protect him. He is going to lead us through this. But something I'm going to say that's going to seem a little strange. God wants to always make sure that the real end game is to basically harvest souls. So I want to refer you to something that I did on another show just a few minutes ago. There are earth changes happening, the likes of which you cannot imagine. There are tsunamis, there are earthquakes, there are clusters, swarms of little teeny tiny earthquakes, 1, 2 on the Richter scale, and they basically are triggering volcanic eruptions. We have the largest number of active volcanoes in the world right now that we've ever had, 47. So why am I telling you all that? Because the book of Revelation tells us that in the end, all these things will compress and they'll all happen at once. And that's how we'll know the season and that we're in. And right now, God is using the elements in order to say, yes, man may look like they're going to bring the economic system down, but I'm shaking everything that can be shaken because I want you to know that I'm the one who's facilitating all of this. So that was my dedication, so to speak, to God, and we'll go back to the reality of the economic system. Take me wherever you want to go, John.
Okay, President Trump is he covered couple of three key issues in the Davos speech. And so I'll summarize it this way and get your comments and weigh in on. He's
Okay.
geopolitically changing the landscape. We've got issues down in South America, obviously with Venezuela, perhaps Colombia next, Mexico. We've got on the other side of the world, we've got certainly some changes taking place in Europe. We've got obviously the quest for Greenland, and we have Canada. And then, of course, there's always the friend and or foe of China. Take it anywhere you'd like to go on what you see taking place, because while we're saving America, we're also redirecting humanity on a course correction, and good versus evil here. What do you see taking place with all these different countries, if you want to summarize that a bit? That's where I'd like to go right at the moment.
Let me give your audience one understanding of me. I can put myself in almost any situation because I've had 57 years to study and to follow God and to get to where I could deliver what he needs. But I'm not an expert in anything. But with what's going on right now, I always look at what the Bible tells me. Go to the end. The end is where you want to go. Would you go out and go across the ocean without a compass? No, you got to go to the end. So when I go to answer that question, I go to the end and I say, what is it that God has planned? What's it Trump got planned? What's going on? And then I can work my way back and I can chart the course. And so here's why I would say I would take this to the broadest level possible. God is orchestrating a situation where we're going to deglobalize the entire world. Deglobalization is happening. It's taking the manufacturing from China and distributing it around the whole world so that all the world can have economic purity, not just one nation or two nations. And then he's de-dollarizing the world so that we can't control the world through a fiat currency. So that is God's kingdom coming into play. And what he's telling us, and what it says right in the Bible, the kingdoms of man must fall. So why and how? So let's look at communism. We got riots going on in Venezuela. Actually, they've got celebrations going on. We got riots going on in Russia. We got riots going on in China. And the people are protesting because what? They're oppressive regimes, right? So God doesn't want to have his people under oppression or under economic, downturn, holding us down. So basically, God's freeing the entire world. Now we come to us and we think, oh, we're good guys. Well, first of all, There's not a sovereign nation in the world at this moment in time. We're all controlled by the banking system. So now an America that's free from the global elite is going to lead the world out of chaos into a period of unparalleled freedom and prosperity. But we have to fall too. The kingdoms, plural, of man have to fall. And what's God in store for us? He says the gold and the silver are his, and all the cattle on 1,000 hills are his. And he's going to bring in a new economic system, his economic system, not based on lack, not based on hoarding, but based on abundance, on God's abundance. We're going to regreen the planets, the deserts. Everything is going to change. And what's our economic system going to look like? The global financial elite, going to that end, they claim they need to get rid of us. They want to have us have, according to the Georgia Guidestones, 500 million people. According to the UN, they'll let us have 1 billion. Well, what do we have to do? We have to realize that they want to kill us because they think we're consuming too many of what they call their natural resources. So what's the real problem? The real problem is that the economic system that has been inflicted upon the world is one that is based on basically product obsolescence. Products are made to last very short periods of time, then they have to be manufactured again, and that's highly wasteful. So what God is going to do is he's going to break capitalism down, and we're going to go to a new economic system that ironically America was the foreshadow of all the way back to the Civil War. We had an economic collapse. We basically had bankruptcy. We came out, and it's just interesting. We're doing the same thing Trump is doing. Basically, we put a tariff on England up to 50%. That made the American people unable to buy their goods and services. So we innovated the Transcontinental Railroad, which, according to God's kingdom, we shared with the world. And then we developed the Industrial Revolution and the assembly line and the automobile and on and on and on and on. And the whole world was being benefited. That's what America is going to do now. We're going to create a new economic system, a system based on product longevity. We can build products that will last virtually forever. We're going to become the stewards of the world. I'll just give you one example. I've got all kinds of shows queued up. One of the biggest things that people will understand about stewardship is that we're killing the oceans and killing ourselves with the forever substance called plastic that's made out of oil and natural gas. Well, folks, did you know that we can have all of the things that we make out of plastic made out of something that's biodegradable? It's called hemp. We can make cardboard out of hemp. We can make cellophane packaging out of hemp. We can make a transparent milk carton out of hemp, and it all is transparent. So God is going to release a plethora of technologies. Trump's laid the groundwork for with what he did in his first term for freeing up the Chevron deal, and we're going to get 5,915 patents. We're going to abandon the green scam and understand what it is. It is absolutely inefficient. It will not work in the new technology revolution that we're going through, where energy is going to double or triple. You can't do that based upon lithium batteries, based on windmills, based on solar panels. We're going to have to go to new technologies. They're there and they're available. So let me stop. All I'm trying to say is God is the one orchestrating this. And when it's all done, we're going to have an economic system where capitalism fallen, communism has fallen, and we're going to have an economy where men lock arms in unity together, and we all have a reasonable standard of living. It was Eisenhower who said, is there any man, any woman, any child that doesn't understand the principal cause of war is what? Inequity between nations. So Donald Trump is working to put all the wars out and to create economic parity with the world with what he's doing and share all the technology. So God's kingdom is going to be ushered in on the world, and it's happening right before your eyes right now. All these nations are going to fall, and here's what's going to happen. We're going to have a total geopolitical shift of power from the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern Hemisphere. As trade comes away from China, what's going to happen is it's going to raise the standard of living of nations in Asia. And the principal lever we have right now as Americans is we have the largest domestic market in the world. Well, as their economies rise, they're going to get a larger and larger domestic market. So America has to make its play now. And that's why we're imposing a reimplementation of the Monroe Doctrine. That's why we're looking at controlling claim the entire Western Hemisphere. That's where we want Greenland for national security. We want Canada for the natural resources, and we want Mexico and all Latin America and South America to get out from under the control of the cartels, so that we can then share all of those nations, bring them into sovereignty, and allow them to have economic parity. And now a strong Western Hemisphere will be able to compete effectively against a growing and emerging Eastern Hemisphere. So with that, let me stop and let you comment, John, and take me wherever you want to go.
You bet. Well, first off, thank you very much. That was an excellent 40,000 foot view summary of what's taking place in this world today. And I appreciate you bringing that out the way you did. Let's get into a few of the nooks and crannies of that big picture
Okay.
for the moment. First, a quick comment first is chaos. With all the changes that I think you aptly just stated taking place, ordained by God, and then being implemented by Donald Trump, the military, the White Hats, we the people, and many others. Chaos is happening, and it just appears to be to average folk, if you will, that Trump's a disruptor in a negative sense. Well, he's a disruptor, all right, but in a positive sense. But they just see the chaos and they focus on that. I'm not talking about the crazy left. Just they see the chaos. People are busy in life, and they're really uncomfortable about it. In a short few sentences, how could you calm that down for folks? And then I want to talk about a nook and cranny in a moment.
Okay. The first thing I can say is you need to go read Trump's books. Basically, you need to understand how he negotiates. He will ask for something that is ridiculous. Why does he do it? It gives him a microphone. He gets the podium with those ridiculous statements he makes. It's never what he wants. He doesn't want to invade Greenland, for example. He just wants to get it on the main screen and the thought processes of everybody, so he can tell the world why we really need it. It's really going to be better for Greenland, for the European Union, for it to have a strong America that can protect them, that can put a shield. So basically, you need to understand the way he functions is to get that microphone. He gets more money's worth of publicity just by being flamboyant than you could ever buy. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is you need to understand where he's going. It's order out of chaos. But here's the paradigm that we have to shift. We have to understand. He's doing everything according to the Constitution, according to the law of war. And then I'm going to seem like a contrarian with what I'm going to say next. Where we're ultimately going to go with this is we're going to understand that we have a government that is illegal, that was put in through fraudulent elections, right? And here's what we have. We have, and I guess the best example of this I can give goes back to President Bush on 9/11, when he gave us the Patriot Act, which was, by the way, modeled after the Enabling Act from Adolf Hitler. And it put us into absolute slavery. It created a legal dictatorship. So here's what I say. When you think he's a disruptor, understand this. They said today at Davos, kind of function within the legal system, right? Well, what if that legal system became a body of laws that was 2,700 plus pages of laws that were written to benefit the global financial elite, the banker gangsters who enslave us. So when we get out from under this and understand that we haven't had an honest election since McKinley over 100 years ago, we're going to find out that those laws, just like he did with that auto pen, can be stricken, and we can move away from laws that are written in documents that are 1,000, 2,000 pages. And just like he said, you'll do your taxes on a postcard. The laws that we write will be done on a postcard, because he's not going to make decisions based upon the slavery system that they've put us in by a body of laws that are designed to create a legal dictatorship. We're going to go back to God's kingdom. We're going to go back to the republic for which we were founded, and we were never a democracy. We are a republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, a people who came here to pursue God, to pursue freedom, and to pursue the right to own property and have the right to carry a gun and protect themselves.
Thank you. Let's talk about, when you're talking about unconstitutional activities and criminal activities, one has to invoke the Federal Reserve and the IRS. So let's go into the central bank for a moment. What do you see
Mhm.
happening behind the proverbial Wizard of Oz's curtain right now with the big five central banks, and then of course the central bank system by and large throughout the world? They're panicking right now. How would you break down what you see happening behind the scenes, and why is it good news, even though it's very tumultuous?
Well, there are slave masters, first of all. And secondly, I'll go back to Kim Clement. Basically, what did Kim Clement say? He said the whole system was, well, let's go back even further. David and Goliath. It was a stone, right, that took Goliath down. Kim Clement said the whole system will come down from a simple stone. Well, I think that simple stone was silver. I think that's the silver squeeze that have put the banks in a terrible position where they're going to have to pay out towards the end of this first quarter billions and billions of dollars. And I think we're going to see the 4 or 5 largest banks in the entire world potentially collapse. And that's going to bring down the system. That's what God wants. That's what Trump is orchestrating. He's told us we're going to go from the Internal Revenue Service to the decentral revenue service. He's getting the head of the Fed out, getting his own man in. He wants to lower interest rates. Why does he want to do that? Because we've got a lot of our debt that has to be refinanced. We need to have it at a lower rate. He's talking about lowering interest rates to 10% on credit cards so people can save some money. All of that has to happen. So what do
Mhm.
we see in the big picture? We see that the financial system has to collapse because he who controls money controls the world. And so if the banks fall, then it's going to cause a cascade. If we find out about the election fraud, we drain the swamp, the crooked politicians are gone, and basically the banks have collapsed and the corporations along with them, and we have absolute chaos, order out of chaos. So now what happens is Donald Trump's economic plan for the world is different than any we've ever had before. They basically put us in a
Mhm.
debt trap. They drive it up until we can't afford it. It collapses. They start the same debt trap over again. Donald Trump is making provision. This is a whole show in itself to have a soft collapse for America and then to grow it immediately out of debt, wipe out our debt completely. That's why he's got $18 trillion queued up. He's just, we gave our wealth to China, starting with Carter. And now, with what he's done with the tariffs, he's forcing nations to bring their money to America. And he's going to basically rebuild our GDP by basically having $18 trillion worth of new technology. And we're going to release unbelievable technology to go with those manufacturing plants. So I see, to answer it, he's told us, here's what it is. The Fed is going away, period, and we're going to get back under the treasury. We're going to go away from fiat currency. We're going to go to currency that's backed by gold and silver and a whole bucket of commodities. And there's not going to be a unipolar a world anymore controlled by the United States or Canada. It's going to be a multipolar world controlled by half a dozen different currencies, by nations that have sovereign currencies. And basically that brings the peace and prosperity to the world that we're all looking for. So it's a net absolute positive. It takes away the control of the global financial elite to control all the spheres of influence. They can't control the banks. They can't control the politicians. They can't control the media. They can't control the education system. It's all gone. And we get basically a reset. And that's what we're having. That's what God promised us, an economic, moral, and spiritual reset.
Yes, indeed. This reset, this show is titled Global Financial Reset, but well said. It's a reset of how we as souls and humans coexist on this planet together. Everything's going to be lifted and raised, but as you stated, order out of chaos. And so the chaos is front and center and probably slated to get worse, according to 107 and others, before it gets better. You mentioned he who controls the money controls the world. Absolutely. And also, as you well know, he who controls the votes controls the world. That's a whole different conversation for another show. But if you want to just slide in maybe 60, 90 seconds of what you'd like to share with the audience on the progress that we're making, revealing what people like you and I and much of our audience knew back in 2020, and that is, in fact, that the elections were stolen. What's your comment about that, real quick, before I talk about the Jubilee?
I've said all along, we have to have honest government. And I've said Venezuela is the key. For those people who don't follow it, They're the ones who basically programmed the Smartmatic voting machines. They transferred it around the world to 72 countries. They stole our election. Mike Lindell said that they had it all. Trump said they had it all. They had cyber people tracking those votes as they were going out and coming back in. They had it, but they say we're supposed to what? Have an honest election, an honest government. No, they wouldn't live his day in court to tell us. So what I've always said is we are going to have whistleblowers come out by the droves, and the key is Venezuela to find out everything that we really need to know about the election fraud. And what that's going to do? Drain the swamp. We're going to have that. Trump basically was alluding to the fact that there might not be a midterm. Well, is there a scenario that might make that happen? I think there is a scenario. If we drain the swamp, if we find out emphatically that the American people realize that the elections have been stolen, then there's a provision according to the law of war where basically we can remove those people, just like with the auto pin. The laws they passed are not legal, and we have 120 days to have a special election. And we might have a special election instead of a midterm election. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. And I'm saying that everything that can be shaken will be shaken. And as far as fixing the election system, it's so simple. Just basically all we have to do is have IDs. We have to get rid of mail-in ballots. And if we go to the new economic system that Trump is talking about, it's what? It's based on blockchain. And with blockchain, the minute you try to create voter fraud, it's going to be exposed. The minute you try to money launder in order to send billions to the Democrats, it's going to be exposed. It's Doge on steroids. So basically, we're going to get control of the system and understand that we are being controlled by people who have passed laws that create a legal dictatorship. And we're going to get out from under those laws, and we're going to get our republic back, and we're going to understand that democracy, according to our founding fathers, was mobocracy. And it was either Lenin or Stalin who said the imposition of a central bank is 90% of communizing a nation. So I hope I didn't take too much time on answering that, but basically, we're going to get our freedom back.
Music to our ears, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. That is what we're dealing with right now, and it is a monumental task. We know the outcome. Those of faith and those who have been following the truth lines along our journey understand that. And so I just say to the folks that are having a difficult time with it, those of faith, you know what to do. You just got to ground yourself there. But let me say this. Let's talk briefly about the repatriate. We've covered this with other guests on the show, but I'd like you to weigh in. Repatriation of wealth, and then factor in when the Bible speaks of a jubilee. What do you see happening?
Mhm.
Because you've alluded to it. You know, President Trump has taken the credit cards, at least as a step one, down to 10%. He's telling us all the time we don't need a federal income tax. I mean, he's giving us enough hat tips, clues, and direct statements as to where we're going to end up. What's your summary of on the subject of a repatriation of the wealth that has been stolen from us fraudulently through birth certificate, through taxation, through fraudulent mortgage contracts, banking contracts, and so forth and so on? How could you encapsulate that coming back to the American people? There's a lot of theories on that.
I'm going to go back and start with the Bible. It says neither a lender or a borrower be. You're not supposed to have usury. So we had a system where all but 6 states prohibited these usury interest rates. So what did the bankers do? They went around them, they incorporated into the 6 states, and now we've got interest rates 20 to 30 to 35%. That's going to go away. Trump alluded to it today. And then we go deeper into this, and you're effectively, without saying the word, you're talking about Nasara. And so let's go back and put it in a stake in the ground that makes it simple to understand. Basically, any legal contract is only binding if both parties put something tangible into it. So there was a Supreme Court decision that happened way back in the 1920s, and basically they were stealing the property of the farmers. They basically what they did is they would take their farms, and the farmers came in and got together, and they said we're gonna sue, and so they won. Here's what happened: the Supreme Court said Well, the farmers contended that they had their life's energy into that. And then maybe it was generations of family members who had laid all of their labor into it. They had their houses on there, they had their barns, they had their tractors. So they had something massively tangible, right? And the Supreme Court said, well, what tangible asset does the bank have? Well, if we understand how the banking system works, they just create money out of thin air with no collateral to back it. So the Supreme Court said, farmers, you win. That became the basis for the new economic system that God is going to give us, where there has to be something tangible on both sides. So that lays the rails for the foundation of implementing Asara. And then if we go back to where America founded, we're going to go back to our roots. So did we have a central banking system then? No. Did we have a federal income tax? No. Did we have property take racks? No. Did we have property tax? No. We had a simple tax that was a sales tax. That's all there was. That was ran the entire country. So we're going to get out from under. I've got a wonderful show that I can do for you that's on disclosing to people what the fractional reserve banking system is, and it enslaves you. And so bottom line is we're going to find that the courts are on our side, that we are standing in right. And what's going to happen is the Fed's going to go away, property tax is going to go away. And where did we get the Bitcoin that we are putting in the strategic reserve? We didn't buy a penny of it. We did it because Trump went around the world and he took assets, which the law tells us we can take assets from people who are doing illegal things. When we find out what the politicians have done to us, what the bankers have done to us, what the corporations have done to us, we're going to be able to seize trillions of dollars that can be distributed back to us as retribution because it was stolen from us, because there was never anything of value that was provided by the other side. And so we're going to get a completely new economic system based on exactly what America was based on. I sold real estate for 12 years, eventually had my own real estate firm. And here's what I would tell you. There's not a one of you out there that owns a home. And that was the Central American dream. Why? Because we had a system that was called a odial ownership based upon Spanish land grants that said, once you pay that house off or that land, it's yours for perpetuity. Nobody can take it. We came along and passed fee simple and said, oh, well, we're going to be able to take your house. We will create an economic collapse that'll cause you to lose your job, and then you can't pay your taxes, you can't pay your mortgage, and we'll come in and take it. And we won't just take the $10,000 you owe us because of back taxes. We'll force you to sell the entire house, and we won't give you anything back. So that's theft. So basically what I see is we're going to go back to law, to real law, to an economic system that's fair, to a judicial system that treats everybody fair. And we're going to just wipe out all the laws that were passed to control us. And I don't know if that answers your question, John, but I think that the bottom line is the SAR is real, and people are going to find out that the debt is going to be paid off very soon, because we're going to take the money from the global financial elite and use it for the benefit of mankind. And then we're going to spur all kinds of projects. We will come together as a planet and we will solve all the ecological issues facing this planet, because we're going to spend that money on things that provide stewardship for God's world. We're meant to be the stewards. So we're going to get the money from the global financial elite criminal system and use it to benefit all of mankind.
Excellent. I know my audience wants me to ask you this right now, and of course, it's a crystal ball question, so we'll disclaim it as such. They want to know when.
Okay.
It's not. They want to know when they're going to get that relief, because everyone's had it up to their eyeballs and people are suffering in America. The American dream became the American nightmare, as George Carlin once said, and he was absolutely right. Crystal ball question: when? We see it slow roll out now. We're getting a check in July or by the end of the year. We've got 10% on credit cards and so forth. But is this something that we can look at towards the end of this year? Is this something we can look at in stages over the next 3 years? Your best guess.
All right. I'm going to quote the Bible again. God tells us
That's a
that
good
no
place to
man will
quote.
know the time. All right. So here's where we're going to go. We're going to set
Hey,
a general time frame, all right? And we're going to look at events that
yeah,
are unfolding and see where they might go. All right, so we see what Trump's doing. We're seeing we're going from deglobalization and de-dollarization. We're going into a new economic system that takes away all the control of all the spheres of influence, right? So how's it coming down? We're seeing governments collapse like that. God says the governments collapse in a day. I can take a government out in a day and I can install another government in a day. We're basically get rid of the bankers, we're going to get rid of the corporations, and we're going to get rid of the politicians and basically create a new economic system. Now I'm going to go to Kim Clement. He said to us that there were going to be falls in the fall and rises in the fall. I contend that that happened, that was triggered, and he said that we would be happy by Christmas. So here's what I say: the financial reset actually began at Christmas time. And what it was, the Bible says that the kingdoms of man will fall, but with a simple stone. So how did David take down Goliath? With a simple stone. What's the simple stone? Silver. Silver created the initiation of the transfer of wealth when it caused the silver squeeze, and silver went up to 100. It's going to go to 200. It's going to go to 300 because now it's recognized as a strategic asset that is essential for manufacturing. And so basically it's going to go through the roof. The foot is off of the financial system. The best example I can give is the one bank that held down gold and silver more than any other bank was J.P. Morgan. They got out of all their paper contracts, and in the midst of this rise, when silver was around $60, $65, they bought $22 billion worth of physical silver. What's that tell you, folks? We're nowhere near the ceiling for silver. It's going to go up and up and up and up and up. Now, to get down to your time frame, you know what Trump wants? He wants to have this over by July the 4th because he wants to have the centennial celebration for our 250th year anniversary. So first of all, we got to see these governments collapse. Now it'll bam, bam, bam. We've got to get the government in Washington out. It means we've got to have a massive amount of whistleblowers come out so that we can have a situation where we don't have civil war. We have to win enough hearts and minds that yes, we'll have chaos, but not a full-blown civil war. I think that information is flooding out. I think that people are working and getting it. I love one thing Trump is doing. Do you ever watch the little videos from baby Trump? What he's doing is just ingenious. I study psychology, all kinds of things. So what he's doing is he's coming to the people with these little cartoonish figures, and what it does is it turns off all of your alarms, and you just listen and you laugh, and the next thing you know, you received something and you didn't reject it. So basically where we're going is the economics has to collapse. We have to get our government back. And then here's what I see. I see that we basically have this collapse, I believe, probably towards the end of the first quarter of this year. And then what's he said? Catastrophic collapse, immediate rebound. So what have they done in the past? In 29, took 10 or 12 years to recover. Oh wait, 10 or 12 years to recover because they never had a plan for recovery. Trump has a plan. He's going to build all those factories. He's going to do all of those things. So we rebound immediately. And so we're not going to be done and through this by the end of next year. But we're going to be, I believe, in a situation where the collapse has occurred, where if we're going to have some kind of lockdown, it's going to have happened. And the economy is going to be restored because now what's going to happen is when this banking system comes down, we're going to find out that we have the new banking system running in the background. And so it's not going to be nearly as traumatic as people think. So we're going to have a very quick turn. I believe by 4th of July, we will be well on the way to recovery. And then it's just a matter of time. It takes time to build billion-dollar factories. It takes time to develop the technology so that we can get out from under dependence on China for some of the things we're under, from the pharmaceuticals, for the rare earth, etc. But the restoration, I believe, will be clearly visible to the people by the middle of this year.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk with you off camera at some point. Both of us are as busy as one can possibly be. But dare I say, pile on more stuff onto our calendars. But I'd like to talk with you about doing a short series. We can talk about it weekly, perhaps a 30, 45-minute educational series versus a show format where we can backfill for the public what those that are just waking up and looking around, like you said, the Federal
You
Reserve
just
or
walked into
this
my
aspect
assignment,
of the
John.
biblical. What's
What
that?
God told me is that what you just walked into my kingdom assignment. What God told me is that he would keep me in the cleft of the rock until we were ready to have the financial collapse. He'd bring me out because only then would people be ready to listen. And what he made me is a teacher. He said that I will cram enough information in your head so that you can insert yourself into any situation from a 60,000 foot view, see all the puzzle pieces, and tell the people so that they will understand what's been done. So would I want to go on a show with you and teach the people the truth? I would absolutely, without the slightest shadow of a doubt, be totally tickled to do that. So yes, we'll talk.
Well,
And
great.
yes,
Let's
the
talk.
answer is yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll talk about that, obviously off camera at some point in the very near future, because that great awakening, the awakening, is taking place already. Every minute, thousands and thousands of people are starting to look around, finally say, hey, what's going on? We want to help them get through that. So thank you for that. We've got two Power Patriot guests sitting in our digital green room. They're going to join Larry and I right now for a follow-up discussion on Larry's talking points and, of course, everything else that Will Barney and Bill Armour want to bring to the table. And so, Larry, if you'd have a seat in the proverbial digital green room, we'll bring you back on screen in just a moment. Will Barney brings over 19 years of experience in the banking sector, where he has developed a strong specialization in structuring funding for commercial projects on a global scale. You can learn more about Will by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. I have a contributors page up on the navigation bar where you can take a close look at Will's biography and a link up to his website, enochgs.com, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Anyway, what I'd like to do is I'm going to run this clip that dates back a few weeks because it lays down the foundation. Actually, we're not going to run any clip. Let's go ahead and bring on Will Barney to say hello. Sorry for my
Hello,
snafu
John. How
there.
are
Hi,
you?
Will. Good to see
Doing
you.
great. Thank you for
Thank you for
asking.
being here. You bet. We're going to unleash you in just a moment. Let's talk about Bill Armour, who's also waiting in the green room. Bill has built a unique career combining vocational ministry and expertise in the precious metals industry, equipping him to bridge faith-based perspectives with practical wisdom in stewardship and in business. He's originally from Tucson, Arizona. Bill Armour spent 8 years serving in the U.S. Army Reserves. Thereafter, he went on to attend the Azusa Pacific University, a Christian school in Southern California, with a focus in Christian ministry and biblical studies. So welcome back, of course, our good friend Bill Armour. He's a precious metals expert, of course, at Genesis Gold. I need to mention that as well. Bill, say hello.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you. All right. To my producer, if possible, without creating any feedback issues, both Bill and Will, if we can get their volume raised a bit, experiment with that throughout the show. I can already see all the comments on Rumble later that John was loud and they weren't. That may be the case. Anyway, thank you, Will, and thank you, Bill, for being here. Let's go to a 4-panel screen, and there we all are. Bill and Will, presumably you've been listening to some of the dialogue that just took place in the last 35 minutes with Larry and I. We'll go to Will first. Do you care to comment on anything that you've heard and certainly anything you'd like to raise? Will Barney.
I wanted to just make a couple comments on some of the things that Larry shared. Larry touched on some very important salient points. And first of all, thank you, Larry, for that, because a good overview, and I actually agree with you 100%. We're walking through a series of steps that is about the implementation of where we're going. And we don't get to just jump there in one leap, although that would be really nice. It does take a little time to do that. The things that have been happening over the last few weeks, Silver, even what occurred today with Davos. And after Davos, Trump had a meeting on Greenland, and he said, we already have the structure of a deal on Greenland. So it looks like that's proceeding forward very quickly. I also agree that the change of interest rates on credit cards is a step towards where we're going.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll see a jubilee in the end. So we're going to get some reprieve now, and then eventually we will get a jubilee, because you can't have a central bank issuing you money that they have no basis in. It was a mouse click. They didn't have any energy, any effort, any gold, any silver, anything in it. So, and it's the same thing with the mortgages. They don't tell you that when you sign that promissory note, that you're the one creating the money. It's a living person signing that promissory note. If you look at those documents, I know it's because I used to be a banker. If you look at those mortgage documents, there's two documents that have no social security number on it. It's the deed and it's the promissory note. And both of those must be engaged by a living person. And when you engage that promissory note, they take it as a promise to pay and deposit it into a secondary account. It now becomes money, and you paid for your own house with your own signature. And yet they want you to pay it back plus all the interest and everything else. So we all know what a fraud the entire thing is. When you look at 38 trillion of national debt, do we pay back 38 trillion when somebody on the other end clicked a mouse? I mean, come on. It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make, that is what's known as fraud. You can't ask for the blood, sweat, and tears of the American people on the labor that they conduct every single day to pay you back something that you had no basis in from the get-go. So I do think in the end, this isn't immediate, but in the end, we will see a jubilee of those debts that were done fraudulently. And that's why the farmers won their farmer claims. That's why we're going to have Nassar and all these other things. So, but we don't get to go there in the snap of a fingers just overnight. There's a series of steps we're literally walking ourselves through over the next weeks and months as we get closer to the 4th of July. I've been told by my sources the Patriots would love to be finished in terms of starting the reset by the 4th of July. Will we make it? We hope so. Okay. I just know there's an intense effort being made. And from what I've seen, particularly over the last month since Christmas, it seems God is paving the way.
Well said, Will. A quick comment. We're going to go to Bill Armour. To our audience, these are some words I jotted down as I listened to Larry Ballard and Will Barney thus far. We're approaching this unprecedented biblical time in history, as outlined by our two guests, from a contractual standpoint, from a lawful and illegal standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, to cite just a few perspectives. It's very good to keen in on all of this collectively, because that is what is happening, and there's a lot of value to be gained from these guests. Bill Armour, would you care to jump in on any aspect of what you've been listening to thus far, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. As I was listening in the green room, Larry, you said something, and it really just spoke to me as a word from word of the Lord, and that was talking about silver as the cornerstone that breaks the entire system here, because it's such a as you said that I've long talked about this, I've said this many times on this show that silver is kind of that Achilles heel, as it's destroying a lot of the financial nonsense that has existed, and unveiling that. But putting it that way, obviously you've got Christ, as biblically speaking here, as the cornerstone and also the stumbling stone for non-believers. And I think silver is the same way here, is it's the cornerstone that is building this new iteration that we're facing here, the new world that we're coming into. But it's also the stumbling stone for the non-believers, the people who don't see it and that continue to reject that. They're being shocked and awed, and they can't be convinced of what's happening, because that's biblical. It will be the stumbling stone. It will crush everyone that falls against it. So as you were talking about that, I was really that was such a great way, because for so long, people have talked about how silver is going to be the thing that unwinds all of this. but I've just never heard it quite put that way. And I thought that was so brilliant, such a great word from the Lord. So I just wanted to connect on that, because that is what we're seeing. JP Morgan, as you mentioned earlier, has obviously changed their position there and gone the other way, but we're seeing across the board, this is the metal, the rock that is confounding the banking world and the I would call them the economic overlords, maybe you could say, or the banking cartel. This is this little metal, this little rock here is what is revealing the truth, and I think that's so brilliant.
Yes, indeed. Larry, do you care to comment on anything at this point?
No, I had a half an hour, so I want to hear from them.
You bet. Well, why don't we start with Bill? We'll work back to Will, and then we'll pick up Larry. Bill, what do you see going on these days? What's on your mind? What news story? There are so many to chomp through, that especially off the speech that the president just gave, and so many turns of events. What would you like to bring to the table in this discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we've talked at some length, on previous shows about what's going on with the paper versus physical. But I want to talk about
Mhm.
something we maybe haven't talked as much about, and that's some of what we're seeing in China, obviously, as they're limiting exports of silver. But one thing that, and I mean, we're seeing the differential between, we're seeing silver on our markets at, $90, $95. At least that's what it is according to COMEX. But in China, you're looking at silver at $120, $130 over the counter. So we're seeing a huge discrepancy there that, of course, over time that remedies itself. At 95 dollar silver goes to $130 silver, and kind of that we see that equalize. But part of that is because of a couple different things. In China, you've got $22 trillion roughly that sits in bank accounts and other bank deposits and whatnot. And rates are low. So rates are very, very low. You've got real estate confidence is in the toilet ever since the Evergreen situation, for people who remember that. But that's still continuing. We're still seeing fallout. So the real estate market in China is a disaster. You've got low rates. And then you've got capital controls, which is kind of the biggest thing here, is they limit money that can leave the country and how it can leave the country. So what is the logical next step? If you can't spend your money and you can't get it out of the country and you can't do all, where do you put your money? Well, in the private asset that has always existed and always been there, and that's physical gold and physical silver. So we're seeing in China, that's part of the reason they're limiting the exports, is so much silver is being purchased inside of China, and then they're trying to get it out, but they're trying to buy it from other countries. I mean, we're seeing, just to put this in perspective, global mine supplies about 800 million ounces a year. At 100 for silver, at $100 an ounce, that's about $80 billion. Think about 1%. If everyone just took 1% of their savings that they've got in banks and put that into silver, we're talking about 220 billion. So then we're talking about a quarter of all mine production there would be purchased by just individuals in China, not even central banks, just individuals in China. And we're starting to see this switch here where, you've seen crypto has been kind of rough for the last 6 months. A lot of that money is rotating into precious metals. So again, we can talk about the paper, but there's this new demand that is cropping up in China that we really haven't seen before. I've mentioned in the past, India as well. We're seeing massive spreads between the difference of the bid and the ask. So people are starting to have to bid more and more and more to actually get the physical silver. These two countries in particular, we're starting to see drastic differences, which again speaks to the larger problem of supply and demand, of not being able to get the above ground silver. Just looking at kind of an international perspective here, that this isn't just a US problem, this is global. Any country in the world that wants to modernize their country, that wants to grow the industry, silver is used for all of that. If you don't have it, you can't grow your industry, you can't grow your economy, your country, etc. So this is becoming, again, and just kind of cycling back to that, the metal that is going to break the financial sort of overlords here.
Yeah, well, that's the stone that Kim Clement spoke about right in front of our face. Yeah. It's interesting and great points you raised there about what's going on in the silver market. And I want to ask Will Barney to weigh in. Anything you want to share with us, Will, but one quick question off the heels of what Bill just said. Can you break down in simple terms for our audience, what did the big five banks that Larry alluded to that may be on their way out, they're certainly panicking. Can you break down in simple terms, what did they do? Why are they on the wrong side of the trade, and what's happening to them right now that's shooting silver? Besides what Bill mentioned, which is critically important, it's now on the rare earth minerals list, I believe, silver. That's historic, and also obviously the supply and demand issue, because everything is needed. So many things are needed to make uh, silver in production the world over. But there's also the games that have been played for decades by the bank system. Break down the game they were playing, Will, and how they got caught, and how you see that playing out, and anything else you'd like to bring to the table, sir.
Well, silver is an interesting topic because this has been a massive manipulation for a very long time. And when you look at it, even today at COMEX price of say $93, or it's varying between 90 and 95, it is still massively undervalued. And I say that because if you're a miner and you want to get silver out of the ground, the price isn't high enough for you to even engage to operate a mine. If you're already operating a mine, if you're pulling copper, gold, and other things, and you can extract silver as a secondary metal out of your refining process, it's economical for you, okay? But the price is too low. I've been hearing that the price has to be a minimum of $125 for miners to even think about getting back in the game. And they really want to see $300 an ounce silver so that it's actually economical for them to even go pull it out of the ground, okay? So this is an interesting phenomenon because over 60% of the consumption of silver is going to industrial uses right now. That's your circuitry, your televisions, your phones, all of the chip makers, okay? Electric cars. They're consuming over 60% of the silver. We don't have enough silver supply unless we get mining going again to meet the needs of what the new technologies that are about to be released are going to give us. We need more silver supply. So if the price of silver doesn't get up to an economical number where miners can actually get back in the game and say, okay, we want to deliver this and get it out of the ground, we have a broken system. We can't even operate with our factories and our operations unless we can get to that point. So that's a whole nother discussion. Now, talking about the banks have been manipulating this for a long time. JP Morgan, they pulled out. They sold all their shorts. It cost them a bundle of money, and they borrowed some more money, and they went in long, okay? But you still have Citibank and Bank of America that are sitting there taking it in the shorts right now. We're all shorting the system. Citibank, big trouble. I'm telling you, very big trouble. I don't know what's going to happen in the end, okay? And Bank of America, maybe they hold on. They can get some of these short positions sold out. You had an interesting phenomenon that occurred today where this afternoon around 1 or 2 o'clock, suddenly the price dropped. Gold and silver. Gold hit an all-time high today, 48.55. It peaked out. It's unbelievable, okay?
Yes.
And silver, it was up there too, almost $95, and then suddenly it drops down to like $90. Everybody's looking at what happened. Well, it's nothing more than market manipulation. If you look at what happens on the futures trading, you have all these future buyers that are going in and they're able to buy a contract or a portion of what it actually costs. They don't have to put up the full 400 some odd $1,000 or whatever for that contract. They can lock it in for $35,000, right? A portion of it. And so they put their money in. But what happens is if they raise those margins, and let's say that they raise, because they did a margin raise just recently, okay? They raised those margins. What happened is suddenly they now had to throw up an extra $8,000 or whatever for each of their contracts. If you're not sitting on cash, 50 grand sitting around in the bank of just extra cash you can throw at this, you're forced to do something. It's called liquidate. So now you have to liquidate your position. You sell out. So everybody starts liquidating at the same time because they have no choice, drives the price down. And who's waiting to buy? JP Morgan. Anything they can get their hands on. They're acting just like China right now. Anything that's of a buy, they're buying it. They already know where this is going. So we have an interesting phenomenon of manipulation going on. but it's the manipulation tools are breaking. They're literally breaking in
Yes.
front of them. And they're like, we don't know how to, we can't keep the manipulation going anymore. The last time they did this margin thing, they held the price down for a whopping 23 hours. And then it was right back to where it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So it used to be they could hold it down
Desperation and
for
panic.
2 weeks, a month with this. Not anymore. Not anymore. Now they're breaking it's coming right through their hands. And now everybody's trying to get their hands on the physical. We have futures trades going on right now. And if you're going long on the futures, you need to state your position of what you intend to do when it comes due. Okay. So if you look at March that's coming up, you have 330 million ounces that have already stated we intend to stand for delivery upon expiration. Okay. There's only 180 million ounces there. What's going to happen in March? Right now,
Yeah,
physical
March
is what wins the race. And believe me when I tell you, you can buy paper at $92. You cannot buy physical silver at $92, not anywhere. I dare you to find it. And so we're in a very interesting phenomenon where silver exposes the fraud, but in the end, gold will eliminate it. We'll reset the system on a gold standard in the end, and the Fed will be over. Gold will literally destroy them. But silver is so important because it provides this huge expose for everyone to see that is tangible to them, particularly because silver is the metal of the everyday person. That's the one thing they may have something of because its price was attainable. And so for them, they see it, they feel it, and it becomes very real. And I think that this exposure is an important part of the reset because if we don't feel it, if we don't understand it, we will tend to repeat it in the future. And we need to not ever do that. I hope that helps.
I've been waiting 30 years to have this conversation. I never thought I would see what we see happening in our world during my lifetime. And I hope God keeps me here a lot longer to enjoy this golden age that's upon us because it is definitely happening. And you gentlemen are breaking it down, as I said, contractually, lawfully, legally, constitutionally, highlighting on the criminality and so forth. And to go back what Larry said earlier, and I want to bring this to the attention, stuck in my head when Larry said, the president is able to go out and seize countries and assets, of course, and Larry knows this, and I just want to highlight it. Legally and constitutionally because of executive orders like 13848, 13818, and so forth and so on. So, Bill, I want to jump to you real quick, and then we'll certainly go to Larry with a question that'll take us into the crypto world in a moment. But, Bill, gold. Gold we've been talking a lot about silver. Will just comment on the importance of gold. Why don't you weigh in on gold as well? We're creeping up to 5,000 gold. Gold. And also, Will, you mentioned something that brought me to the 17th letter of the alphabet, Q, the greatest open source military intelligence operation of our time, born and housed out of the Department of Energy, as I've come to learn from our good friends. And what I will say is that that is exactly what we see happening. Paraphrasing the Q board a long time ago, gold, I think, will bring down or expose the Fed. Why don't you pick up on that point, Bill Armour, and talk a little bit about gold's role now and moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it is the item here that will back the asset-backed currency moving forward. So obviously, there's a tremendous amount of value in it. And you're right, silver is getting all of the attention right now because of what we're seeing. But quietly, in any other market, it wouldn't be quietly. Gold is up 72% in the last 12 months. It's up 40%. In the last 6 months. So in any other world, that's headline news. But obviously, because we're spoiled here with what silver is doing, that's getting a lot of the talk. Now, suffice to say, the growth in silver, probably a little more explosive here in the meantime, but that's not to discount what we're seeing out of gold, which when people come and they talk about portfolios, obviously we're always, it's not one or the other, it's both, because both of them, perform extremely well in the coming time. But providing that asset here that is going to, all biblically here through all of the Old Testament and then into Revelation, gold is the asset here that does always retain value. It's God's currency that he instituted for us to use, because guess what? You can't make more of it. It is limited, it's finite by nature. So having that, and that's why we continue to see the United States buying gold. That's why the entire world is buying gold. In fact, a little known fact people may or may not know, just at the start of the century here, about 85% of all reserve currency was the dollar. You fast forward today, it's sub 30%. We're talking about 20, 25%. And what is that being replaced with, right? Because they still have something of value to replace that with. Countries are ditching the dollar for gold. And because that will be the standard here. And I think people in the know understand that, whether that's banks, whether that's countries, people have started to understand that gold will be the gold standard, not to make a pun, but and so that is obviously the thing that people are going to want. There's tremendous industry in utilization in silver, but certainly when we talk about finance and backing currency moving forward, that will be gold.
Yeah, here's a little tongue-in-cheek kind of a statement, but our lives, certainly during my life, I'm 67, we've come to know the expression is as good as gold. We've never said it's as good as silver. We've always said it's as good as gold, take it to the bank. Now I'll say take it to the gold dealer. I would like to go to Larry, and Larry, you can comment certainly on anything you've been listening to, but I want us to also move us in a direction as we take on this last subject before we wrap up a broadcast is crypto. Here's what I know from a layman's standpoint, what I've learned from my guests, from the research I've done, and from listening to my president. This is what I see happening. I stand to be corrected if so by anyone on this panel, but President Trump, well, first off, our good friend Juan O'Savin whispered in my ear years back, and then with a megaphone put it out on all the new media outlets, that crypto was originally a black hat operation and was designed to lure us all into it. And then, of course, Trump wasn't supposed to win, but God had a different plan. And so Hillary was supposed to come in and nail the coffin down for us and then wipe us out. We'd take all the money we put in crypto and wipe it away. Okay, well, that didn't happen because, as I said, God had a different idea. And that's what we're watching unfold right now. So that's my understanding of Bitcoin going to its origins. Now, moving forward, in layman's terms, what I see happening is the dollar's going to suffer greatly. I mean, it's dropped a lot in the last several days. It's got to be dropping if these five big banks are going to the lender of last resort, the Fed window, and borrowing tens of billions of dollars, injecting that capital, and that can't be good for the dollar. So the dollar, and according to Juan again, who knows a thing or two about currencies, if one understands Juan's history, the dollar is going to suffer more greatly than it is today. And then we'll experience a resurgence like we've never seen before. Okay, so if that's the case, and again, as I understand it, we'll have a strong gold-backed and perhaps other commodities-backed dollar en route to step to a stable coin, moving away from the paper of it, and then that stable coin perhaps going into a quantum financial system with Space Force level encryption that can't be hacked, that's decentralized in our own private wallets with no need for a bank. Now, by and large, if that's kind of the 40,000 foot view layman's version trajectory that we are heading in, and Trump also has stated, President Trump, not a fan of central bank digital currency. That is different from cryptocurrency. We've got American Bitcoin, and the Trump's throwing some muscle into that. Now I'm making things a little vague, ambiguous, and so forth, because that's how they are for me. Larry, can you straighten this out for me and for our audience and comment on where we are heading with a currency? What is crypto's role in this, and anything in that space you care to comment on?
Okay, I want to comment on the comments from these two gentlemen because I think I can bring in a little bit from history in. So basically, what's kind of happened in silver? The Hunt brothers in 1980s. Here's what happened. They got silver up to $50. But then guess what? They came in and raided the margin calls, and it was all based on paper, and they got called. And so everything crashed and they lost everything. They tried to do the same thing a few weeks ago, but everything has changed. Why? They tried to raise the margin calls, didn't affect the market at all. Why? Because the market, just like JP Morgan, got out. It's not paper anymore. It's tangible, physical. It's used to manufacture things. And so nobody left. Nothing changed. The market didn't drop because people want delivery, because they have to have it. So that's the first thing. The second is going to gold. And here's what they basically comes to my mind in gold. Remember, I said they do the same thing over and over and over again, right? So what happened when we had the 1929 crash? Gold was confiscated, right? I think it was $23. And then they raised it to 35, which made they raised it by 69%. Well, guess what? Until just recently, our gold, which is what these gentlemen are talking about, was intentionally kept on our books at $42. Why? Because they want to do the same thing they did in 29. They want to be able to have something they can revalue to put some confidence back in the dollar, right? So Trump has said he's going to take gold to 20,000, and he's got this whole scenario to do just what you said, John. He's going to have Bitcoin, he's going to have gold, he's going to have XRP, he's going to have a stable coin, he's going to back the stable coin by the full faith of the US dollar backed by gold. You buy the stable coin, the stable coin is going to be used to buy treasuries. Now the world has confidence in the dollar because it's at least partially backed by gold. It's backed by the US economy, and that is our recovery coming right there. And so what did Trump do? We've now run revalue to basically create $6.2 trillion coming in to the coffers to do what we just said by Trump raising the value of gold to $20,000. Everything repeats. And if we go back, one last comment, if we go back to what we were talking about silver, nothing's new under the sun. So let's talk about one other aspect that they talked about. So what are they doing to us right now? We're in a silver squeeze, right? Well, you know that in 1934, when we were coming out of the Depression, you know what we did? Roosevelt said, we want to have silver to back our currency. And so we did the same thing to China that they are doing to us. They were the only economy in the world at the time that was based on a silver economy. We practically drove them out of existence by doing the same thing. Now they're returning the favor to us. And then we've got this problem with drugs. I know this is a little off this topic, but the British basically what? They came against China and inflicted them with opium and basically brought them to where they were passive. That's what communism wants. And now what are they doing to us? They're doing the same thing. So if we know history, we can see the playbook. And so to go to your last piece here, crypto is going to be the salvation, but there's two parts to it. So right now, we're not going to go into a central banking system, central bank digital currency like China is. We're not going to inflict the world with the beast system. But what's going to happen is when the collapse occurs, XRP, having all the clarity it needs provided, the regulatory clarity, is going to become instantaneously implemented, because it's going to give us what we need. There's no credit left in the market. It's been taken out. It's going to give us the ability to keep the markets running. It's going to be the collateral, if you will, for the global logistics system. And it's going to save the world, because basically we won't have to have a total, complete shutdown, because it will be the liquidity. We won't have Nostro Vostro accounts. We'll basically have XRP. And for those people who are kind of believe in God like I do, I want to share something with you. I'm not a prophet, but remember, I died in 1968, and God has walked with me ever since. And at tipping points, he tells me things. So this is a personal story, but it relates to this conversation. One night I'm saying, God, I lost everything I had in the 08 collapse. I lost $1.85 million, and I lost my business. And so I said, hey, you said you restore me. I don't have any money to put in the ground. I don't have any seed. So he came to me. We have an appointed time, 5 to 5:15 in the morning. He says, go find out what crypto is. See, I'm old. I didn't even know what it was. So I did that. And then after I did that, he came back and he said, now find out what XRP is. And what did Kim Clement say? There's going to be this asset that's going to make people infinitely wealthy. It's an X and a space and a P. XRP, if I fill the blanks in. So what God told me was, I hope people are listening, I'm not a financial advisor. This is a personal encounter with God. So he said, I am going to give you the opportunity to buy what is going to become the world's reserve currency. No individual in the history of mankind has ever had the opportunity to invest in what will be the world's reserve currency. It's always been reserved for the elite. So silver, gold, XRP crypto. It basically restores everything. Everything can be broken down into finite resources. We can use a tanker full of oil. We can use a gold coin to buy a loaf of bread, and we have absolute total financial flexibility until we get into the end of the book of Revelation and it turns into the beast system. So I just wanted to support what they had to say because there's a history angle to it too. So I'm done.
Thank you very much. Larry, you referred yourself as you're old. If you're old, I'm ancient. But let's
I
talk
bet I'm
about.
older than you are.
Nah, I don't think so. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're all here at the right time by no accident or coincidence, and it's wonderful to be here. And you gentlemen are providing extraordinary value to everyone around this world listening to this broadcast right now, because what we're witnessing and while there's been all kinds of changes throughout history, of course, there's never been anything like this on the global scale happening. And that leads me to a text that was sent to me, Will, by my producer upon my request, and thank you for forwarding it. 9 different cryptos that are ISO compliant. Wanted you to comment on that real quick. XRP, I may pronounce some of these names wrong. Cardano, Quant, Algorand, Stellar, Hedera, Hashgraph, HBAR is the symbol, IOTA,
H-bar, yep.
XDC, Quorium, and so forth. XRP at the top of the list. Why is this list important, and what does it mean to people?
Well, this is a
Will?
list of cryptocurrencies that have spent time to get themselves compliant with regulatory standards. In this case, we're talking about the ISO 20022 standard. What that standard is it's actually a specification for how you record financial transactions. And the whole world is moving to this new specification. And the reason they're doing that is because it doesn't matter what chain you're on, what blockchain you're on, if you record your transactions the same, you now have interoperability. So everybody's moving to this standard. So what's interesting is these particular cryptos, and of course, XRP, first one on the list, Larry's already talked about its importance to him personally. I can tell you that XRP has a very important role to play. It will provide the liquidity that we need. And of course, when that day comes, its value will move to the level of liquidity needed. Okay. So its value will be what's needed on every day for liquidity. So it could move. And what's interesting is these particular coins have from the get-go have tried to set themselves up as something that is going to be compliant with future standards, and that's going to certainly make it easier. So there's a lot of different coins out there. There's thousands of different crypto coins out there.
Yes.
But there's only 9 on this list that are actually compliant as of today, as of 2026. They're actually compliant with this financial reporting standard. And I think what you're going to see is all the countries adopting this standard so that they can have trade with one another. They can move money back and forth between borders using XRP and things like that, so that there could be commerce, uninterrupted commerce. Right now, it's very difficult to do a trade. If you want to do a transaction with China and you go to your bank and you say, I need to send Chinese yuan to China, your bank has to have an equal number of US dollars on one side and Chinese yuan on the other side. They have to basically be double funded in order to do that transaction. That doesn't make any sense. XRP allows this liquid in between where it can convert to XRP, convert back without being double funded. That's better for everybody. You don't need to be double funded on the sender or receiving side. So I see its value being tremendous because the utility of it is unparalleled. If you look at the options we have today, and its speed is unbelievable. I've done transactions on XRP in 3 to 5 seconds, and it's settled at that speed. I don't know anything that's moving that fast.
Yes, I'm in Asia, as my audience knows, and I'm doing international wires from time to time, and nothing's happening in 3 seconds. I can assure you of that. That's still in the SWIFT system, but soon we'll be out of that, and that'll be nice. Think of the amount of money that's made by the banksters with the trillions of dollars that move in a given week, sitting around in cyber world, raiding the cookie jar on us and delaying our transactions, business and individual. We could talk with a panel like this, boy, we can go on forever. And of course, we're going to have to wind this thing down, but I want to bring up, dare I, one more subject. Juan O'Savin, once again, I invoke, and for those why Sean keep invoking Juan O'Savin? Well, he knows a thing or two about currencies. He's been serving this nation since Ronald Reagan. He and others were part of a team that helped bring down that wall, tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev, by collapsing and inflating into oblivion the Russian ruble at the time, and therefore ushering out the Soviet Union and into Russia. A big piece of history during Reagan's time. Juan was there. Juan travels around the world. People think he's just vacationing around the continents. No, he's on mission, folks, getting things done so we can sleep at night. Having said that, Juan has stated, because a lot of people say, some folks, I won't mention names, economists, well-known people, old school, new school, that have been talking about a big stock market crash. While there's a lot of reason to make that statement, Juan also just kind of flippantly said, hey, the Dow could go to 60,000. And of course, President Trump is talking about, a massively robust market that Larry alluded to earlier that may come after the collapse, if the collapse comes. But what Juan was basically saying, and this was on camera on a show I did a month or two ago, he's, I'll paraphrase Juan. The elephant in the room may not necessarily be the potentially collapsing stock market or the fact that it goes to 60,000. He didn't break that down. I should probably bring him in and break that down. But the elephant in the room, as Juan alluded to, is the bond market and the US dollar. There you have two things that we know are in peril. We've covered the dollar here to some extent. Even Jamie Dimon, who's, not on our side, so to speak. Jamie Dimon now is well on the record about the bond collapse that may be one of the biggest economic meltdowns we've ever had. So any quick comments? We'll start with Bill. We'll go to Will. We'll close out with Larry, and then we'll bring this segment to an end. Comments on the stock market, up or down? Will it crash? In the crystal ball talk. And your concerns about the bond market and the dollar. And look, folks, I'm going to just put it straight out. What's the leverage? What's the hedge against all this? I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. Oh, yeah, gold and silver. Okay, physical, tangible metals is your hedge right now. And later, probably real estate. But right now, it's gold and silver and perhaps copper and other commodities. But gold and silver is the big story. Bill Armour, please talk a bit briefly about your crystal ball. Yes, the Dow's going to go to 60,000 and beyond in the new economy once we get there, in my humble opinion. Will the market stocks crash, in your best guess? And what's your commentary on bonds?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a, kind of just a caveat on what you said there is when you talk about the hedge, and Juan always says this, and I think it's a great way, is, Juan says necessarily that, gold and silver isn't this, eternal investment that's always the best investment. It really, he always says, and I think this is a great way to think about it, is it's a vehicle and it gets you from point A to point B. And it's going to, it's kind of like a boat is how I'll describe it. Is a car might do you great on a cross-country trip, but when you get to the end of the United States, you're going to need a boat. And that's when gold and silver comes in, is there's a time and a place, a season for everything. And certainly helping to bridge that gap, get across this ocean that's in front of us, that's where metals are such a great option. Now, and obviously no one, I certainly, least of all, don't have a crystal ball. But my interpretation of what I'm seeing is that really when we talk about the bond market, we talk about stocks, we got the whole situation here, is there's so much that hinges on a false financial system, this fiat system. And so as that is uncovered and as that system breaks down, obviously there will be fallout there. Now, and I would agree with Juan on this, certainly, is that most of that fallout or tremendous amount of that fallout will be seen in the bond market. And then, of course, however, you're still going to see that in the stock market. At least I would believe so. And so that fallout here is kind of that initial wave that really you're trying to avoid with metals. And that's to say nothing of the gains you're making in metals. That's more of the safe haven aspect of metals, is that's what you're getting out of the way of, is that initial wave of fallout. Now, long term, as we've all talked about here, we're looking at a rebuilt economy, a rebuilt world of plenty. And so, long term, of course, the Dow, 60,000, et cetera. But in the short term here, that fallout period is what we're avoiding. So if you can not take some of that, if you can really avoid that, get in the boat as opposed to just driving through the ocean in your car, that's where metals come in. And so that's kind of what I would add on there.
Excellent. Thank
Good
you. And
point, Bill.
it's common sense and good advice. Go ahead. Will Barney comment on this subject and anything else before we move over to Larry, sir?
Well, there's a couple of things that are going on. If anybody's been watching over the last 12 months of the Trump administration, the market, our stock market, has hit a all-time high 52 times. Okay.
Wow.
This presidency is not interested in flatlining the stock market because that would wipe out everyone's retirement accounts and he would have no political standing left. Okay. Not interested in that. And he's talked about it today in Davos. It's going to go to all-time highs. You don't need to do much to make corrections. If you switch the dollar from being debt-based to asset-backed, you don't necessarily need to crash the market to do that switch. You just simply say, we're now using a new treasury dollar. It's backed by the assets of the country. And he has shored this up because the first thing he did after becoming president, within 3 days, he issued an executive order creating a sovereign wealth fund for the United States.
Yes.
What does this mean? It means they took all of the assets of the country and he put them into a basket where they can be monetized to support this. And that is all in preparation for the new money coming out because it's going to be backed by the assets of the country. And the interesting thing is these assets gain value over time because a lot of these assets are land. If you look at the 100 miles offshore all the way around the country, okay, there's one. And how many oil drilling rigs are sitting out there in the Gulf that are pumping oil? Where do you think those leases are paid to? They're now going to the sovereign wealth fund. It used to disappear into the crevices of government. Nobody knew where the money was going. Now the Department of Interior, Doug Berg, I mean, he's really coalescing all this. Why? Because he's now bringing all the assets into one place. And what's happening is these assets are now being utilized. There's now mining permits going out. There's additional drilling permits being issued. And this is raising the value of what that is. That is why on the U.S. debt clock, they say that the new treasury dollar will be a dividend dollar because it will gain in value as we go on in time. That is so different from debt. Now, let's talk about the debt because you mentioned the bond market. Bonds are debt. Okay, let's be clear about that.
Yes.
And the biggest concern in the bond market is municipal debt. It's state, county, and city debt. And it's at all-time levels. Okay, it's really high. But where'd they borrow the money from? If they borrowed it from individuals, they got to pay it back. If they got it from the banks, that could be a little bit different. But a lot of times these bonds are sold on the market and you have people investing in them. That's going to be the hurt. It's going to be the municipal bonds that people personally invested in that's going to be the real hurt. I like what Bill said about have a hedge. Have some eggs in a basket that is safe. Gold and silver, historically, are very poor gainers. They just, not checking the last 24 months, okay? Just saying. Prior to that, they weren't really something you invested in to grow money. It was a place that you parked wealth so you didn't lose it, okay, primarily.
Yes.
And so usually they would say, oh, if you've got a wealth fund, you should have 5 to 10% in metals, just a hedge so you don't lose everything, okay? However, over the last year, the last 12 months, since January of last year, silver went from $30 to $93, $94 right now. It's 300%. when you see metals moving at that kind of rate, and gold went up massively too. Like I said, it peaked at all-time high this morning, 48.55. So what does that tell you? It tells you that when there's that much demand in metals, a market correction always follows. Because if you look at the history, it's always that way. Okay. That there's a corrective
Interesting.
thing. And what's going to happen is we're going to see the air be deflated. But this president is trying to put policies together so that the air is leaking out over weeks and months and not a sudden rush and flat tire. Okay. He's trying to, Larry talked about this, 30 minutes ago. He wants to create a softer landing for America so that we can then rebuild. And if you look at this administration, everything they're doing, whether it be the Commerce Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, every one of them, they seem to be moving in a direction to try to lessen the blow of a massive panic crash. In the past, the bankers were in control and they wanted a massive crash because they clean up on the flip side. Now we're looking at it differently, and we seem to be a whole new leadership here that I think will help us get through the changes over the coming months, and we'll be in great shape. Thank you.
I just want to
Thank you, Will. Great commentary and analysis. Taking us full circle. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I
Did
just
you
want
wanna
to
say
jump in
something?
and share one, just completely agree with everything you
Sure.
said there. And an interesting statistic I always like to share with people is since we left the gold standard in 71, silver has maintained, kept up with the Dow, gold's doubled it. So it's really a reflection in exactly what you said there. It's a reflection of the system we're in that you're seeing metals move this way, not necessarily of metals themselves. It's kind of, I always say gold is a financial bloodhound. So again, just agreeing with you there, some numbers for people to hear that really this is a product of what we're seeing, and gold is reacting to this financial system more so than it's just suddenly, growing for no particular reason.
Fascinating conversation. I'm sure our audience is fired up on the social platforms with one of our producers chatting. It comes full circle to Larry. Larry, you mentioned earlier about potential crash, but not long lived. Comment on anything, but please do initially weigh in on your view again on stocks and bonds, and then anything else you'd like to say to close out.
First of all, I want to say these two men know a lot more about finance than me. I know a lot about history, so I'll bring some history into this, and I'll leave the experts to talk about the details. But basically, we can go back and we can always see something from history. So basically, as pointed out, I think it was Will who said it, bonds are a debt, right? So we create a dollar, the dollar creates a bond, which is a debt obligation. All the nations of the world, I'm going to sound negative, but I'm going to turn it and close on something positive. All the nations of the world have GDP that's up through the roof. I mean, their debt to equity is through the roof. The whole world's in a debt crisis. What's going to trigger it? Something similar to the silver squeeze is going to happen with bonds. The nation in the world that, to my knowledge, has the largest debt in the whole world, debt to GDP, is Japan, who happens to be our friend, but they're fighting for their lives. They're in absolute economic crisis. They're going to be forced to sell treasuries off. That's going to send a flood of treasuries back. But what Trump is already doing with setting up the strategic reserve is going to soften that so that we're not going to have it. And then we're going to have the ability to back by gold with what he's doing with that strategic reserve. And then I want to point out something that's really, really, really positive. China used our money to grow an unbelievable economy. What did they do? They took our manufacturing and they took it over there. So people say that what? Money is the root of all evil. Money, you control the world, right? Well, I'm going to look at it a little bit different. I'm going to take it up higher up the food chain. Where does the money come from? That's what we got to understand. That's where we're going at the end of this. So basically, you have to have natural resources. So Trump is getting us the natural resources that we need, right? Then you have to manufacture. So Trump is getting $18 trillion worth of manufacturing plants. And then what does that do? Those two things make America probably the #1 manufacturing facility in the world, again, surpassing China, back to our position. And what does that do? That means that the debt to GDP of America goes through the roof. That means that America becomes very financially solvent, and any pain that we had going through this is gone, because where the money had its origin was with the natural resources. Where we get it is when we sell it. And who has the largest domestic and international market in the world? The United States of America. So God had it all planned. We go in a circle, it goes right back, and America goes back to where we were back when we were founded.
Fascinating. And so Trump goes for the jugular against the World Economic Forum globalist plan. What you just said really rings loud and clear to me. When the America becomes a manufacturing giant of the world again, taking that power away from China, which we exported out decades ago. Certainly, Bill Clinton helped that along, and that is now coming to an end. And that's great news. We're going to unfortunately have to wind this program down, but don't go anywhere, because I'm going to have some action items and some important recap with Bill Armour before we conclude the show. To my producer, I think we have an image that I submitted for Larry Ballard's book. I would like to put that on the screen, full screen, if we have it. And while we're waiting for that image, which we may or may not get, Larry, talk with us about your new book. When's it coming out? Is it out? What is it about? Briefly, and if my producer has the image, let's pop it on the screen. Go ahead, sir.
I'll try to make this quick. So my principal assignment from God is to wake people up so the truth can set them free. So there's a book that's already out, been out about a year and a half, Liberty Crusade, The Fight to Save the Free World. What that does is tells the people what made America great in the first place and how we've lost it. And then this next book is called Liberty Crusade, Restored Republic. So it's right in God's timing. I waited for him to tell me to release it. That's going to tell us how now we get back what we lost and how we keep it. And then I'm even going to go a step further so that we can get this audience to keep coming. I got a third book, and that third book was ordained to me by God from a way back. It's been done for 3 years. I'm waiting for him to release it. And you ready for this? Here's what it's going to do, because we started with God and what God's bringing. It's called Liberty Crusade, putting the power back in the Bible. So once we get through all of this, it goes to God's kingdom and it goes to his harvest of souls. So to answer your question, the second book, right here it is, Restoring the Republic. I'm going to put it out I just think this is kind of apropos because I think it's good news, and I'm hoping the people will buy it and share it with their spouses and their kids. I'm going to release it for pre-sale on Valentine's Day, and then it's going to go up for actual sale on probably the 6th of March. So Restored Republic, Liberty Crusade, Restoring the Republic. It takes us up to the brink of where we are right now. We obviously can't cover all these late breaking things in a book, but it gets you to where you'll be able to understand all the conversations that we've had on this panel today. It will make sense to you. So the truth will set you free, and the knowledge will allow you to be empowered.
Thank you. LarryBallard.com, folks. Visit the website, bookmark it. I think you're going to be hearing from Larry and I, maybe putting the cart before the horse, but from your instant reaction earlier, probably weekly on some sort of special curriculum education series that Larry can map out, and he and I can structure and do some special educational reporting with Larry Ballard, separate from this broadcast. Well, I'll have to put my thinking cap on how I'm going to be able to pull that off with my time constraints, but we'll make things happen. We're busy, guys. We're busy because we're busy getting things done. So let's get some more things done. I want to thank you, Larry Ballard. Let's go over to Will Barney. Will, what is the name of your website? We've discussed this last time you were on the episode, but spend a few minutes again explaining you're doing some very, very valuable, important work, in my opinion. So explain what you're doing and the domain of your website, please.
It's enochgs.com. So enochgs.com. You can see it right there on the screen. So that's the website. So what do? It stands for Enoch Global Services. So what we're doing is we're building out an infrastructure to launch, manage, and maintain humanitarian projects into decades into the future. This is a very large scale system that we're building out. We're talking like billions of dollars of infrastructure into a private data center that's specific for these projects with military grade encryption and privacy, with all of the latest in tools that we've been able to assemble. And we have some incredible people working on this. It will take us another 18 months, 24 months probably for full conclusion, because it is a large project. But once we have that done, we expect to be able to launch thousands of new companies and projects every year for humanitarian work to rebuild this world. We want to build heaven on earth, and we feel like we need this infrastructure in order to do that. So that's our primary focus, is getting that done. And then we move on to the other projects. We have hundreds of projects that we've assembled to do, from restoring the soil, new building products, energy products, some really cool things that we think will make a massive difference for the world. So I hope that helps.
Well, it sure does. And God bless you for that work. And restoring the nutrients in our soil is so important. I believe the things they've been spraying in the sky for decades has also been depleting those nutrients in the soil, which is a scar and a crime. And that's another subject for another day, because I know a lot of patriots are pretty pissed off and have a right to be that these chemtrails are still being sprayed in the sky, and so forth and so on. But I do know that the president and RFK Jr. and others in the administration are going to be taking that on, and we're going to see that come to an end. Great work, EnochGS.com, Will Barney. Thank you, both Larry Ballard and Will Barney, for being incredible guests, providing tons of great information. We'll see you back here. Will, actually, let's put up on the screen to my producer at this time. I know I'm off script, but put up the image of what's taking place on January 29th. This is a Patriot Q&A hour with me and Will Barney. I'm just acting as the host. Will Barney is the Patriot Power guest for 1 full hour, not in a show format like this. It's on a Zoom, dressed up Zoom platform, where your password gets you access into this. That's not the right screen. Just leave up. There you go. Just leave that. Thank you, sir. Will Barney and I, January 29th, 8 p.m. Eastern, for 1 solid hour, where Will will be answering your questions. It's a Q&A. No speeches by me, no dialogue scripted like these shows where we bring out all this great information. Now we get to answer your questions about this great information. And that's 1 solid hour. We will start exactly at 8 p.m. Eastern. We will end exactly at 9 p.m. Eastern. And the full hour for Will to answer your questions. So visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on Premium Portal. Learn all about that and the other values in there. We look forward to seeing you on January 29th. Thank you very much. Let's go to Bill Armour, split screen me and Bill. Thank you, Larry Ballard, for being here. Thank you, Will Barney. Look forward to seeing you gentlemen in the very near future. Bill, we've had an incredible episode of which you've contributed a lot of great information and content to. I want to see where I want to pedal back, because we unpacked so much, but let's bring you can bring up anything you choose. But one thing I'd like to kick this closing segment out of our show with is a simple question. I think if our guests were listening, our audience was listening closely, they may know the answer to this. For those that weren't, Bill will give you the answer. We've had tremendous growth in silver. 150% ballpark in the last 12 months, probably up 50% year to date. It's only January. and same paralleling trajectories on gold, but lower numbers. A lot of folks might be thinking, I've missed the ride once again. I'm too late to the dinner. All I got left are the scraps. What would you say to that?
Yeah, great question. Because what's funny is I have been getting that question. I got that question when silver was $30. I got that question when silver was $40, $50, $60. I got that question when gold was $1,700, $1,800. I got it a lot when gold was $2,000. So, it's just funny, because I almost wish people could sit in my chair for a couple months and start to realize that when they ask that question, I like to compare it to waiting for a train. You have missed one train, but the trains come every 10 minutes. And so you certainly haven't, granted, could you have gotten in a little before? Absolutely. And would you have rather to? Yeah, I sure would have. But at the same time, that is not to say that that's the only train that comes. we're talking about silver at, $300, $330 is what, many people in my circle are talking about. We're talking about gold, being revalued to $20,000. So when you look at gold at 4,800 and to 20,000, you look at silver at $95, $95 to $330. I mean, we're talking about 300+% returns, over this transition. So I would certainly say that you've not missed the window. Again, did you give up some by getting a little later? Absolutely. But in the grand scheme of things, this is still such a tremendous time as it has been. And I've been saying this for months and months and months on our show, or on your show here, is that ultimately this is going to go on for a while. And so if you're thinking about this and you've been looking at this and just kind of mulling back and forth, you were right at the first inclination for people that haven't done this yet. That first kind of thing that popped into your head, maybe it was a month ago, maybe it was a year ago, I should do this, I should do this. If you've not done it, you were right then, you're still right today. And absolutely, I would say this is still a great time to get in.
Excellent. We've listened in this broadcast that I think from Larry, that paraphrasing or quoting the president, Donald Trump, that we could see gold once revalued at 20,000. Now that's extraordinary since it's just barely at 5. But whether it hits 20 and when it does, there's tremendous growth en route to that 20. We've listened in this broadcast to projections of silver in a relatively near future at 200 or 300 an ounce for the reasons that were stated by everyone in this panel. I've seen other estimates at 1,000. Do you think that silver? When do you think silver will hit 200 or 300? I realize these are crystal ball questions, but you're a man of expertise and insights into this. When do you think that'll happen? 200 or 300 an ounce, and why? And could it go to 1,000? And if so, why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would just kind of point to what we've seen in silver. So in the last 12 months here, I'm going to pause for a second. 12 months, 210%. Is how much silver is up in the last 12 months at $64. So if you think about, okay, what is that? What does another 212% look like? Well, now that's $180-ish, $180, $190. So that's just 12 months there. So if we see a continued trend on the line that we're already on, you're seeing $200 by roughly the end of this year, beginning of next year. And given, it tends to move and then it pauses and moves and pauses, retracts a little bit. All of that is very normal. It's very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, I mean, at this point, we've been seeing this continued trend for a while. And I think that Will Barney brought up a great point, which is that at the current value, it's not necessarily profitable for miners to even get to it. So it still has to come up because, again, this is necessary. At some point, there is going to be a revolution where people say either I can get the silver at whatever price it is or I can't, and whether they have to go knock on doors and ask people if they can buy whatever silver they have, or they have to start offering more and more and more to miners. We're going to see that at some point because flatly, I'll just say economies are not going to shut down entirely because no one's willing to pay $150 an ounce for silver. The reality of growing economies will necessitate that they will pay whatever it takes to get that done. So I see this continuing. I see this trend continuing. It could be faster, it could be a little slower, but absolutely, I see the track that we're on maintaining.
What a great time in history for those that have been fortunate enough, blessed enough, and wise stewards of the wealth they've accumulated to get it in the right place at the right time, knowing all that we've known and all that we've learned in this and other episodes. For those that do not have investable assets right now, a lot of values gleaned from these shows every week. Global Financial Reset, because we learn about our sovereign wealth fund. We've learned about the unprecedented prosperity that we're going to be facing. We've learned about a jubilee. We've learned about Nassar. We've learned about wealth repatriation. We see it being slow roll dripped out. So help is on the way, folks. Help is on the way. And so everyone listening to this broadcast has the opportunity to thrive and to prosper and live in a world of abundance rather than a world of scarcity. Which of course God intended the abundance for us, and that's where we're embarking upon right now. I want to leave, and anything you want to comment on, I'll give you the last word, Bill. But I want to leave my statement first. This is that I'm action oriented. People that follow me know I've been saying for years, saving America is not a spectator sport. You got to get skin in the game. What were you doing when your children and grandchildren asked you, what were you doing when the global governance was being thrust down the throat of America and the world? What will your answer be? It's the same sort of viewpoint I have on protecting your wealth, growing and protecting and being a good steward of your wealth. It's not a spectator sport. You actually have to do something. Action changes things. I do my best in this GFR broadcast, which is why I launched this show. Mostly I do military panels, breaking down all the other aspects of this war. It looks like I'm frozen on the screen. I hope we haven't lost transmission. I will continue. But what I'm getting at is I launched this very show, answering a call from my audience to focus on this. So I'm doing that. Action is up to you. Visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. I put together a sister site just to discuss this. There's 10 free video modules there to empower you and get you educated on that. That's an action step. That's just one action step. Information. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is wisdom. That's where the second action step is give Bill Armour a call. Mentioning this broadcast in my name will fast track you to Bill. He's quite busy, as you can imagine, in his firm right now. And they do have gold and silver access to in inventory to sell to you, provide for you right now. But give Bill a call, get a complimentary consult on a personal level versus listening to the broadcast, and he'll help you get from where you are to where you need to be. That's the second action item. First one, get educated at Wealth Coach University. Second action item is give Bill a call direct. Phone number's up on the screen for you. Visit jmcgenesismetals.com. There's information there from Genesis Group. There's information there from President Trump. There's information there from me. And then just give Bill a call. Third and closing action item, I can only do 8 appointments a month. You can get to secure a private wealth coach appointment with me. Remember, I put on my old financial advisor hat only from an analysis standpoint. I can't give specific investment advice, but I can act as a wealth coach and consultant for you. Visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. I'm only doing 8 appointments a month. I can barely get that squeezed in. And my calendar is pretty full with that right now. There's a mechanism for you to get to me through that. So these are 3 action items. We need to do something. We need to get off the couch, take advantage. This show was just chock full of great, positive, incredible information, all grounded in biblical principles and the times that we're living in. So the next step, folks, is up to you. Bill, I'll close out with anything you want. You've got the last statement here on this extended broadcast.
Yeah, I would just echo that anyone that reaches out, I take my personal time here to help anyone that comes through John, just by virtue of I want to support the fact that I think John is doing tremendous work. Everyone that's listening already knows that. But I make myself directly and personally available for every single person that comes through. You're not talking to, you're not getting pawned off to someone else. The same person you see on the screen is the same person that you will speak to and will help you through this process and answer your questions. And frankly, I have and John knows this about me, but a very genuine interest in helping people with this process, because we do both believe in this. We do both understand that this is such a great opportunity, not just to grow your wealth, but also to protect it. So really just looking at where we're at, again, emphasizing that if you thought about this before, this is something that you're not too late on. I would say reach out. The worst thing you're going to walk away from that interaction with myself, that consultation, is that you've got some more information to maybe make another decision down the road. But more knowledge never hurt. And so that would be my exhortation to anyone listening.
Well, thank you, Bill Armour, very much. 1-800-200-4653, Genesis Gold Group. Thank you very much for being with me every other week on this broadcast. So therefore, Bill will be back week after next. Thank you very much. We're going to run this quick announcement to show you how to reach me on a wealth coach appointment for those that are interested. Thank you. God bless you, Bill. Appreciate the value you provide for me and for those listening. Thank you very much.
God bless.
The global financial reset is happening right now. The opportunities through this transition remain for some time to come. Don't miss this unprecedented moment in history. But caution, identify the dangers through this transition and prevent fatal mistakes by being ill-advised or uninformed. Schedule your private wealth coach consult with John Michael Chambers on a Zoom screen meeting. The ability to meet with JMC is very limited. Learn more by visiting wealthcoachuniversity.com. Once prepared, schedule your consult with JMC. It's time to seize the opportunities and to goots. Yes, goots. Get out of the system. QFS, stablecoin, the US dollar, gold and silver, Fed IRS changes, income needs. Your personal situation will be addressed. It's time. This is a Wealth Coach consulting appointment for those with questions and/or assets to protect. John is not a financial advisor and does not give specific investment advice, nor does he sell any investments, insurance, or precious metals. Gain private access to John and his resource network. Schedule your consult today. wealthcoachuniversity.com.
All right. Free is always a good word. Sign up for free. Our subscription is free. Free newsletter weekly, every Friday in your inbox at 6 p.m. Eastern. Lots of good information in there. Lots of courtesy links for you. A good service every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can subscribe by going to jmcbroadcasting.com. On the upper right-hand corner, hit free subscription. It's that simple. Put in some information. You'll be connected, informed, empowered, and connected. It also includes an audio update. They usually run 20, 30 minutes. Pretty candid, straightforward narrative. Me, just an audio recording, recapping some of the events of the week and some of the programming that we've covered, as well as announcements. This is all part of the free subscription. So join us if you're not already there. For those that want to go the extra mile, for just $9.99 a month is our premium portal. You can visit the same website, jmcbroadcasting.com, click on premium, and you'll see this, what you see on the screen here, you'll see on the screen. It lays down what you get, which is, again, the same weekly newsletter, but the full JMC Unplugged that goes usually 90 minutes, an hour or so, where I go into great detail on all the different things that have happened in the course of a week, as well as other valuable thing in JMC Unplugged, and most important, the cornerstone of what we do in there for your $9.99 a month, which is usually a Starbucks coffee these days. So the value is tremendous. Again, Will Barney joins us every month. We're going to have the Patriot Q&A hour where you get to get your questions answered. Michael Jaco will be joining us next month, and the premier kickoff is Will Barney, Thursday, January 29th at 9 p.m. Learn about the premium benefits by visiting the site, and certainly come and join us. Don't miss interacting live with both Bill and I on the screen, members only, and you'll get your questions answered from Will Barney. That's really it. It's been an extended broadcast. I want to thank my two producers for sticking around and doing this with me. This was a last minute thing where we brought Larry Ballard in, and that extended things and threw me off my more polished structuring as it normally might be. But the value was off the charts. Please share this show far and wide for those that you care about, to awaken, inspire, and motivate to action as we get ushered in to the golden age, but not without further disruptions. We've touched on that. We didn't highlight it in focus. Plenty of podcasters are going into that, the doom and gloom side of things. It's important and noteworthy. We've certainly covered it, and we'll cover it on Eyes on Gitmo, which publishes this coming Monday with Juan O'Savin, retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack of the Marines, who's Juan's Chief of Staff, and I think we have a fourth guest. I wish I had the name in front of me, but I do not. You'll want to catch that episode on Monday. We'll cover some of the dangers there, but we'll also cover some of the incredible progress that's happening with the JAGs and at Gitmo and what we can see coming. But folks, you do need to prepare. But by and large, this is a wonderful time to be alive if you act. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you for being here with me, and may God be with you.